All right, this is 49ers Talk, brought to you by Big O Tires. When it comes to tires, they're the pros. With Big O brand exclusive Protect Plus tire warranty, you'll get flat repairs for free, replacements, and roadside assistance. Big O Tires, the team you trust. Jennifer, it's 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks with, if we thought everything was on the line in week 18, turns out it really wasn't all on the line other than the luxury of hosting. Saturday night, it's all on the line for both of these teams.
It is win or go home. It's that time of the season, and you know that the 49ers are 7-point dogs at this point. It's kind of moved from 7 to 7.5 points, but I feel like this 49ers team likes being kind of under the radar, not the top seed. I think they're kind of thriving in this moment.
Yeah, have you noticed anything? You know, the 49ers lost in Seattle 10 of 11 games over a period of 10 years. They won the one big one, that last game of the 2019 season. Mm-hmm. And then they lost, previously they had lost in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game in Seattle. But since Brock Purdy went up there as a rookie with a broken rib and played well enough to win, the 49ers, starting that night, 4-0 in their last 4 games up there. Have you noticed any change in, the stadium or the surrounding area or anything you could kind of put your finger on why the 49ers have been able to have success up there?
I think part of it is Brock Purdy, the fact that he doesn't get rattled at all in regards to noise, in regards to throwing an interception, whatever it may be. He seems to just collect himself and go forward. And I wrote a story about what Kyle Shanahan said at the end of his presser on Thursday about how, that's Brock. He's calm, cool, and collected. The fact that he turned around after throwing a pick, 8 minutes left in the game in Philadelphia, and orchestrated that drive for the touchdown to take the lead. It's just something that Brock does. And you hear from his teammates that he is calm in the huddle no matter what the situation is. I think that's part of it. But then on the other side, off the field, I feel like there are more 49ers fans that are willing to wear red at Lumen Field than used to be the case. And I don't know whether it's part of it is ticket prices, it's people trying to make a little bit of money off of expensive season, ticket fees, or what the deal is, or 49ers fans up in the Pacific Northwest are just like, I don't care what the price is, I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get into that stadium. But you definitely see a lot more red than I think you used to see up in Seattle.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it does seem like there is quite a presence of 49er fans in the Pacific Northwest, whether they're, near the airport greeting the team when they come to town, or just having their presence felt in that stadium. So, yeah, it's important for the 49ers. I guess all the cliches, get off to a good start, be good on third downs. When you get inside the red zone, be kicking extra points and not field goals. And the first 2 times these teams have faced, week 1, 17-13 49ers, week 18, 13-3 Seahawks. I think the winner's going to have to score more than any team scored, in this matchup this season. I think the winner has to be in the low to mid 20s, if not higher. I think it'll still be a game where the points come at a premium, but I think there's going to be a little bit more offense in this game.
I think there has to be for the 49ers, and I would think there would be. I think it was just a tough matchup without Trent Williams, without Ricky Pearsall versus Seattle, and it was just fatigue and emotional roller coaster of the last 2 games prior to that. I think it all adds up. And with at least one full speed practice, yes, it's a short week this week, but now it's the playoffs. Now it's, it's winner go home. So they have to stay up. And I felt like that energy this week in the locker room and on the field when we saw them was higher, much higher than before that week 18 matchup against the Seattle Seahawks.
So I did my 5 to watch on Friday morning. And I mean, you could pretty much, I could have listed 48 players to watch from the 49ers, including John Weeks, the long snapper. By the way, that was, hopefully it's not as windy as it was in Philadelphia. That it's tough, with the wind. I think that's the biggest factor in a lot of these games. And although the 49ers still managed to win the game, you could tell it affected so many areas of the game, especially on special teams, with
Absolutely.
each team missed, extra points. Thomas Morstead had a difficult time punting into the wind. It didn't affect Christian McCaffrey, although he dealt with it on that pass, but he made a remarkable catch. So hopefully it's not as windy up in Seattle. But so here are my 5 to watch, and just tell me if you think I could go Christian McCaffrey every game, of course, but my 5 to watch were Marquis Siegel getting back in the starting lineup. Seattle's going to target him. Jake Tonjes steps in as a pass catching threat with George Kittle out with the torn Achilles. Juwan Jennings, if there's a time for third and Juwan, this is it, because the 49ers have to be good on third downs. It's Eric Kendricks. Tatum Bethune missed 5 tackles week 18. Kendricks has to shore up that part of it and not allow, what was it, 3rd and 17 to
Mm-hmm.
turn into a 19-yard run. And then, of course, Brock Purdy for all the reasons that anybody and everybody can come up with.
Absolutely. I mean, those are the key players. I want to go back to what you said about what happened in Cleveland with the special teams. And I did talk to both Thomas Morstead and Eddie Pinheiro after that. And they both said it was one of the worst situations for special teams that either one has faced in their careers. Now, I know Eddie Pinheiro's career is much shorter than Thomas Morstead, but Thomas Morstead has been around a long time. So for him to say it was one of the worst situations he's been in means that it was really bad in Cleveland. And I mean, pregame, I would work with one of our photographers to move one way so the hair wasn't going across my face, and then a little bit later it would change, and then I'd have to move another way so it wasn't going across my face. So it was one of those stadiums where it was just swirling. And I don't know whether it's normally that way at that stadium, but Cleveland, which was, equally as strong winds, but at least they were one end to the other. So
You're
it was,
talking about the Philadelphia game?
yes, yeah,
Last week's Philadelphia game. And so it wasn't like a wind blowing one way. It was just kind of swirling around.
incredibly unpredictable. And Morstead was saying the way he punted it, and he's been pretty solid punting, but obviously not a great day in Philadelphia for punting. He said if it got up too high, it would just carry it to the side. So he kind of had to do that line drive type of kick where it wasn't, it didn't get a lot of height. There wasn't a lot of time for guys to get down there. And then I spoke to Eddie Pinheiro, and he said the toughest part about kicking in Cleveland is having to aim for not.
Cleveland or
Oh my God, I
Philadelphia?
keep saying Cleveland. Philadelphia.
Okay.
The hardest part about kicking in Philadelphia just last week was he had to aim outside the goalposts. So normally, he said, emotionally, he had to get over not aiming down the middle. He'd have to kick and think to aim wide to one side to hope that it would go between the uprights. So in Cleveland, it was much different. It was just goalpost to goalpost. The wind was going one way the entire time. But in Philadelphia, it was swirling around, and it was just, they would kind of test it. And he said he had a really tough pregame, and the fans were in that end zone heckling him. And he said, they kind of had to get together. It was Morstead, Weeks, and Pinheiro, and they kind of got together and had a powwow to kind of discuss how they're going to attack how the winds were going. And Eddie said it's really nice to have those two guys. I know there was a lot of questions at the beginning of the year. Why are they going with these two guys on special teams? But when you saw them get together, discuss their kind of technique and approach to what the wind was doing in Philadelphia last week, you kind of understand it.
Yeah, so special teams will certainly, play a factor in this game if it's close. Seattle has a much improved special teams. 49ers have a much improved special teams. They rank among the best in the league in those areas. So that's something to keep an eye on as far as those matchups. It's 49ers offense against the Seattle really good defense. It's 49ers defense against Seattle's pretty good offense, and then two good special teams. Hey, we got more to talk about a little bit later. Jennifer and I will get back together and we'll talk about Robert Saleh and what the future holds for him. But first, when we come back, we're going to hear from Greg Papa, the voice of the 49ers, for Ask Papa. And is there a chance? We know that Fred Warner will be coming back if the 49ers win this game, but is there a chance that Greg Papa could be back for the NFC Championship game if the 49ers can get past the Seattle Seahawks? We'll hear from him after this. All right, we're back on 49ers Talk, brought to you by your local Toyota dealers, Toyota Let's Go Places. And where we're going is for another installment of Ask Papa. So, Greg, I don't know what to ask you because I think we've covered just about everything leading up to this game. But just first off, when you look at this matchup that takes place 2 weeks after, the end all be all game, and now this really is, what's your kind of overriding thought heading into this game about how that previous game influences this one?
It's interesting. I remember the 21 year, the Niners played the LA Rams the last week of the regular season. Had to win that game. It was on a January the 9th date. Klay Thompson wound up coming back from his 2-year injury hiatus later that night. So it was a big day in Bay Area sports. Niners got down 17-0 in that game. Remember, McVay ran on the field and was congratulating with Tyler Higbee. They were celebrating. Niners came back, won the game, the Ambry Thomas interception, and then they made the playoffs. They won in Arlington. They won in Green Bay. And 3 weeks later, there we were back in that same stadium playing for the right to go to the Super Bowl. And the Niners led going to the fourth quarter of that game, and then it all changed. Cooper Kupp got a touchdown against K1, and it was on. We couldn't get a 2nd and 1. Tart dropped the ball, 3rd and 2, and Eric Weddle came down, and a big sack by Aaron Donald on Jimmy. And so, that game was different, decidedly different than the one that was played 3 weeks earlier. What's strange about this one, first time in NFL history, two teams faced each other in the season opener, faced each other in their season finales, and then faced each other in the playoffs at any point. But what makes it really odd for me, Matt, is Seattle has not played since January the 3rd when they came in. And the last image we have of that game was Hall hitting Brock from one side and Leonard Williams hitting him from the other. And I'm like, just get him off the field. Let's get out of here. And let's go to Philadelphia or Chicago and try to win. So that seems like 2 years ago. It was not even 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks ago, when the game is played. So how much are they going to change? Are they going to make a lot of changes? They just going to go out and play like it was the 5th quarter of that game. That was the one game that I actually broadcasted this year. And I don't know if I said it on the air, but knowing me, I probably did, or I was thinking it. In my mind, I thought Seattle's been the better team for 4 quarters all the way through tonight. If we played them 4 more quarters tonight, they would be the better team. So you know what? They are going to get 4 more quarters. They're going to get quarters 5, 6, 7, and 8 to play them. But it's not going to be on January the 3rd night. It's going to be on January 17th. You got 2 weeks to change. We've played a game. They haven't played a game. We got different people with the Niners now. Eric Kendricks is taking over at middle linebacker. You and I have been talking about him for a month on this show. Remember you asking me, what's the one change they can make at the end of the year? Get Eric Kendricks on the field. Get him a green dot helmet at some point. Now, you didn't want it to be an injury to Tatum Bethune, but this guy's played a lot of football. He's a tremendous player, and what he was able to do was just historic. And then, Jair Brown is hurt for this game, so Marquise Siegel will be in a safety tandem with Malik Mustafa, which I know they're going to have a lot of bone-rattling hits, and they may be able to shut down the running game a little better, and that's where Seattle controlled the game with Kenneth Walker III, K9, and Zach Charbonnet. But I do worry about them in pass coverage, and I do worry about them specifically covering the post. The Niners have also made a subtle change that no one's writing about or talking about, but I saw it right away, tried to figure out what's going on. Deommodore Lenoir is changing sides. He's going boundary side of the formation defensively, and Renardo Green's got the field side. They didn't do that before. It was just Demo, you line up at left corner on the offensive right. Renardo, you got the other side, Upton Stout or Jason Pinnock, you go in the slot. So they've changed that. Now Seattle knows that, so they'll be able to move people around if they want to go at him. So the Niners have changed, obviously, and now losing George Kittle as well in Philadelphia is a monumental change, but he left that game in Seattle on September the 7th early. So we know our team well, and we know the changes we made. I'm just wondering, what does Mike McDonald do defensively? What does Clint Kubiak do offensively that's different? Do they just think, we're going to roll out and play it like it's the fifth quarter and we'll go from there?
You know what? Tell me a little bit more about the Lenoir and Green. What are the advantages of that? And, it seemed like before week 18, we were talking about Lenoir. Is he going to travel with Jackson Smith and Jigba? And as it turns out, not only did he not travel with him, there was not a pass thrown Jackson Smith and Jigba's way when Diamador Lenoir is lined up on him. So what are the advantages, and why do you think that would be the change, or that has been the change?
The Niners very seldom, since I've been here in 2019, have ever asked a corner to travel with a wide receiver. The exception was Charvarius Ward. Mm-hmm. He would do it. I think the first time I ever saw him do it was in Atlanta, rookie year for Drake London. But Charvarius got hurt early in the game, so they dropped that. He traveled with DeAndre Hopkins. Remember the matchup in Mexico City? He came on our post-game show and called D-Hop steroid boy and overrated, and he shut him down. And then the legendary one was against DK Metcalf, formerly with Seattle. And that turned into a brawl of the street. It was an alley fight, the way they beat each other up. And so he would do it.
That was a Thursday night in Seattle.
Thursday night game. Yeah, he did it a couple of times, though. He also did it in the playoff game. Remember when Geno hit him over the top one-on-one against Charvarius, and Charvarius was over on the other side, like a 50-yard go route right before halftime. Seattle had the lead at halftime in that playoff game, and then Brock and the boys came back and lit him up. But so the boundary side and the field side, you see it in college football a lot because the huge hash marks in college football. Pro football, they have hash marks, but they're much more subtle. So the best corners in football play the boundary side. J.C. Horn of the Carolina Panthers plays that. Quinyon Mitchell of the Philadelphia Eagles plays that. Devin Witherspoon.
And just to clarify, that's when the hash is on, or the ball's on one hash. It's that side of the field,
so
the smaller side of the field.
Into the boundary. So if the ball's on the right hash mark, then it would be to the offensive right, or the left side defensively would be the boundary. So you have a little more space to the field side. So Seattle does it with Devin Witherspoon when they're in their base. When they go nickel, he goes inside. So, but when they're in their base, he's the guy that takes the boundary. So basically the boundary is where you're going up against the big, the X wide receivers. The other side of the field, and again, we're oversimplifying this. Mm-hmm. You can run a bunch formation to the boundary side as well, but there's less space available to the boundary side than there is to the field side. So if you're going to go like to a 3-by-1 formation, 3 receivers to one side, 1 to the other, chances are you're putting the 1 into the boundary and the other 3 go to the more expansive field side. Doesn't have to be like that. And when the Niners ran sky bang reverse pass, or as I call it, sky rizzy, with Jawan, it had to be on the right hash mark, Jawan, a right-handed quarterback, to come across to make that throw. So the Niners always line up this year with Diamador Lenoir on the offense's right, and he switched. He used to be on the other side. Charvarius Ward was always on the offensive right or left cornerback. And now that Charvarius is gone, Demo took that spot this year, and Renardo takes the backside. That's the way they've lined up. They don't travel. That's the way Saleh typically plays. I do remember years ago when Richard Sherman, I think it was his last year as a Niner, they started to play Richard Sherman into the boundary a little bit. And whoever was the other corner, at the time, Akella Witherspoon, whoever it was, would play to the field side. So it's a subtle change. And I don't know if they're going to do it in this game against Seattle or if it was specifically with Philadelphia, thinking A.J. Brown goes to the boundary side more because he's a pure X wide receiver, and Devontae, the Slim Reaper, is more in the slot, and he runs with a 2 wide receiver formation. And then, how does Dallas Goedert, mix into that as well? So that's just a subtle change to look at. The first series of the game against Philadelphia, the ball was always on that right hash mark, so it looked like the same. Like Demo's just playing on the offensive right, the left corner. And then the second series, I'm like, and I take a lot of medicine to get healthy here. I'm like, am I seeing things? Is 2 on the wrong side? Where's 0? What's going on here? It seems like I'm watching the game in a mirror. Like, where's the out? So they did make that subtle change of the boundary side versus the field side. And that's just a nod that Diamador Lenore is our best corner. Playing him into the boundary is where the elite guys go. And then we'll see if they do that in this game. And obviously, Clint Kubiak figured this out in 5 seconds, what the Niners are doing. And then now we know where Demo is going to be. Now we know where Renardo's going to be. We know where Upton Stout. So if we want to get him matched up with Jackson Smith and Jigba or Rashid Shaheed, or Cooper Kupp, or Jake Bobo, any one of their wide receivers, or their big tight end AJ Barner, we kind of know where they're going to line. If they do that, they'll come right out. That'll be one of the first things I think Sam will be looking at. And Clint Kubiak, say the ball's on the left hash mark offensively, and Demo goes to that same right side. Now that they changed, he's not playing boundary and field; he's playing sides. So we'll see, where they line up. But that was a subtle change that was made for the Eagles game. First time I've seen them do it with this group with Saleh.
When you look at Seattle's offense and the 49ers defense, where do you think Seattle has the biggest advantage heading into this game?
I'm not sure if we line up and play, and you got Kendricks now, obviously covering Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's just a special player. I would think my concern is Mustafa and Siegel, covering the deep middle. Or, if we play quarters coverage where the 2 safeties deep have to cover the 2 inside routes. If they know you're playing zone, they can run. Jackson Smith and Jigba runs any route. He is a beautiful wide receiver to watch run routes, the way he throttles down. He's like Travis Kelce playing wide receiver. But Kyle said it the best. But when we played him back on January the 3rd, it looks like he's in slow motion, but he runs by everybody. How does he do that? It's like there's no effort in his run, and he leans into you and he leans away from you. So I don't like, Renardo Green can cover him. It's a challenge. Upton Stout can cover him. It's a challenge. This guy's the best, statistically wide receiver in football this year. There's a lot of good ones, and obviously Demo. But the matchup with him or any of those guys on a safety does concern me. Siegel and Mustafa, to me, are both hammers. They're both missiles. Mustafa, he comes up and slams the run. I'm hoping, getting Siegel on the field over Jair, helping the run defense against those 2 backs. That's where they won the game. They just controlled the line of scrimmage and ran the ball down the Niners' throat over and over and over again, the whole game. Yeah. So, but I am a little worried about will they be able to stand up to the ball in the air, tracking ability, with Siegel early in the year. And then Mustafa's had some plays where you can, the play on the goal line, and a few times where he hasn't been able to go up and track the ball in the air. So I think that area does concern me a little bit. I think with Kendricks back, I think a big key in this game, Matt, will be getting D. Winters back if he's able to go in this game, and then playing Wallow as that 3rd linebacker. And what that allows Wallow to do is be more effective, impactful on special teams. We'll find out about Luke Gifford if they can get him back. He missed the game in Philadelphia with a quadricep injury. You need him on special teams. The special teams were not as good in Philadelphia. The wind was a factor in that. So Seattle special teams are always good. They were not great on January the 3rd. Their kicker, Myers, missed 2 kicks. He kicked the ball out of bounds one time on a kickoff, which is very unusual for him. But they do have Rashid Shaheed, who's a great kickoff returner and punt returner. And you got to be leery about him, changing the game with a big play.
Yeah, it's felt to me with the 49ers defense that they benefited, I think, Eric Kendricks from not playing much. He looked fresh and he looked fast. I would say that almost the same thing with Siegel, and I would even go so far as to say the defensive line looked fresh. I mean, they suited up 9 defensive linemen, the 49ers did, and Sam Okawanu had the most snaps at 43, and Kalia Davis had the least number of snaps at 27. So you're talking about a very, and I thought effective late in the game defensive line rotation that really helped them. So they're going to need all those guys
without a doubt
against Seattle.
Yeah, the fact that you don't have a Nick Bosa or a dominant guy, or even Michael, because Michael's going to play a lot of snaps, both in your base. He's a great run, base player on the edge, and then they like to move him inside. You don't have that special body, arms, skill. So those guys would play heavy percentage of snaps, especially in a playoff game. Yeah. Now you're just rolling. You're just boom. You're just rolling guys. But Matt, they've got to get off blocks. Seattle controlled this game. That is the biggest concern. I mean, McCaffrey has got to run the ball a little bit in this game. Does he have to get 100 yards rushing? You'd like it to be, but they haven't given up 100-yard rushings to a running back in 26 straight games.
Wow.
The longest in franchise history, the longest current streak in the NFL. So you'd like them to get, with touches, catching the ball. They also took them away. But you've got to be able to – you don't want to get into 2nd and 9 over and over and over again against them. You want it to be 2nd and 6. And then the other side of it is if Sam Darnold's facing 2nd and 4 over and over and over again, and he can do the under center play action thing, it plays to his strength of who he is as a quarterback and what he learned when he came here with the Niners. They also did that when he played effectively in Carolina with Steve Wilkes. They had that kind of balance on offense where they could run the ball with Chuba Hubbard and Sam could play action. So, and then the other side of it is Sam has got to give you the ball. He almost did, on January the 3rd when he got stepped on by Sundell, their center, and he gave it to Charbonnet anyway, and he fumbled the ball. And boy, Gross Matos had a great chance. Sam fumbles the ball. 11 fumbles this year. He's lost 6. He does not put his second hand on the ball in the pocket. It's got to drive them nuts. He's in the pocket with all these bodies around him, and he doesn't secure the ball, and he fumbles a lot. So,
the problem is the 49ers don't get those sack strips.
They haven't, but it doesn't mean they won't.
True.
In a big game like this, I mean, and they did get one against him, and it was Nick pushing Abraham Lucas back into Sam, and he fumbled the ball, and that's what ended that game in the season opener. So I know what's happened previously. It's all starting fresh now. Sam Darnold is vulnerable, especially in the pocket, to fumbling the ball because he does not secure the ball like he should. Watch Joe Burrow when he's in the pocket. He's always got the second hand on the ball, and he's still able to run around and stay alive as a quarterback. Josh Allen holds it like a loaf of bread a lot, and it's, put the ball away. That's why these guys fumble the ball. So Sam, at times in the pocket, can be reckless with the ball. So they know that. So when they rush the quarterback, sometimes you're looking to sack the football and not sack the quarterback. Hit the ball, knock the ball out of his hands.
On the other side, and maybe this is obvious, but the 49ers, they only ran 42 plays against Seattle, which means they weren't picking up third downs. And that, to me, has the effect of it also robs Kyle Shanahan of his superpower, which is using plays from earlier in the game to set up other plays. So that, to me, is a huge thing where the 49ers have to pick up third downs. They have to keep drives going. They just have to pile up more plays. And I think you alluded to it earlier, get Christian McCaffrey going a little bit. They had 1 first down rushing in that game, and that was a pretty scramble. So Kyle Shanahan has to go into his, he has to be able to dial it up and use plays to set up other plays.
Third down's the key. Coming into that game on January the 3rd, the Niners were the best third down offense in football, converting over 51%. And they were even hotter during the 6-game winning streak. That's what Brock brought you. Even in the season opener against them, Matt, they converted 7 of 14 third and fourth downs. In this game, and Seattle's the best third down defense in football. 32.1%, whatever it is, going into that regular season finale. The Niners were 2 for 9. They were 1 for 5 in the game, and that is McCaffrey. Who do you go to on third down? You go to third and Juwan, and you go to Christian McCaffrey. And this guy, Eamon Worry, is a problem. This number 3 they have. I thought he was the second generation, the second coming of Cam Chancellor. And Cam was a great player. Cam was the enforcer. In the Legion of Boom, Cam Chancellor brought the boom box. He's the guy that blew you up. Sherman and Thomas played their techniques, and Bobby Wagner and KJ were flying underneath, but it was Chancellor that laid you out. Eamon Worry is better than him. He does more things than him. He can lay you out, but he can cover Christian McCaffrey with those long arms and 4.38 speed and 43-inch vertical jump. And if he doesn't have him on his side, Devin Witherspoon's got him on the other side. Those guys are playing linebacker. So all those option routes that Christian runs, the Texas routes, the angle routes, and when he set up Kobe Dean of Philadelphia for the touchdown to take the lead, it's hard to do it against these guys. And then you got, I call him Jones IV because I got an IV in my arm. I think it's Jones the Fourth is actually his name. Their middle linebacker is a tremendous player. He started with the Rams, went to Tennessee briefly, and now he's second team All-Pro middle linebacker. The guy's got 5 interceptions this year. He got Brock in the season opener with the big one-hand interception. He's a special player. So they just, in the Athletic this week, Ted Wynn wrote about Seattle's defense and the matchup with the Niners, and he dropped a line in there that I've been thinking about a little bit, and I don't think, I thought more about it, that this defense was specifically built to handle the 49ers offense. And I thought that a little bit with the Rams, when the Rams went to this ferocious defensive front in the post-Aaron Donald era and drafted all these defensive linemen, and the way the Rams changed, the way they ran the ball offensively, getting away from the outside zone, the Gurley man, the Todd Gurley runs, and getting more power and bigger linemen and, running more gap and pulling guards and all that. That was specifically, the Niners have beaten us 9 straight times in the regular season, and they're just kicking our ass at the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmage. So we got to rebuild it. With Seattle, they've rebuilt their D-line. They went out and traded for Leonard Williams. They signed DeMarcus Lawrence. They drafted Byron Murphy, Nwosu, all these guys they've got on their line. But specifically, Devin Witherspoon and what he's become as a nickelback, outside corner in the base, but he goes inside. He essentially plays like a linebacker. And then Nick Eamon Worry, number 3, is another guy, totally different body build than Devin Witherspoon, long and fast, and they're both fast. But a little bit of did they build this defense to be able to match up specifically with Kyle? And the other point when Ted wrote that I thought about, what is Kyle's genius is being able to play with Juszczyk on the field. Mm-hmm. He uses the fullback more than anybody. So you've got, 2 running backs on the field, always a tight end. You can go 2 tight ends. So that's a heavy formation in the NFL. And teams defensively match up. You see it on the sidelines sometimes. They're always 21 personnel, 21. There are 2 backs, 1 tight end. So we're going to play our 21 defense, which is a lot of teams play a heavy package. They have 3 linebackers on the field sometimes, or at least 2, always. The Seattle Seahawks, Matt, I don't think they give a F what you're in. We don't care if Juszczyk's on the field or not. We don't care if Kittle's out there with Tonjes and with Farrell. We don't care. We're going to line up Devin Witherspoon, Nick Eamon Worry, Jones IV. We've got, we're going to put Witherspoon in the nickel. We know our outside corners. We're going to play 2 safeties deep in Julian Love and Kobe Bryant. We're not reacting to what you do. We have our 11, and they go 12 and 13. Okada, the safety, comes in some. Job and Woolen kind of flip it around. I don't think they care. We don't care what package you're in. You're going to go heavy and run the ball. You're going to spread us out of it. Go 11. We're going to match up. Witherspoon is a linebacker / nickelback / outside corner. Eamon Worry, what the hell is he? He's the, they call Kyle Juszczyk the offensive weapon on offense because he lines up here, there, and everywhere. Eamon Worry is the offensive weapon disruptor. He just plays, whether it's McCaffrey or Kittle, or he'll pick anybody up. They'll blitz him. They'll insert him as an edge rusher. Now, we're giving this team a lot of credit. I have watched, you listening to me, you're probably thinking, that's not even go to Luma. That's just, forfeit the game and you guys go to the championship game at home. The Rams did roll up 581 yards against them. Now the Rams are a different offense than the Niners. The Niners can be lethal, but that's a sophisticated passing attack, and so there have been games where they've gotten lit up a little bit. So that's up to Kyle and Clay and Chris Furster to figure out how to run the ball against them. But this is a great matchup. It just goes on and on and on. You don't often play a team 3 times in a year. Obviously, it's a division team, but as I said, never before. Season opener, last week of the regular season, and then in the playoffs. And to do it in 2 weeks' time, and Seattle has not played a game in the interim. This is so fascinating on so many levels.
Oh my gosh, Greg, you're so fascinating on so many levels.
Let's go.
You are in playoff form. And if the 49ers bring it on Saturday night like you just did, they'll be just fine.
Well, here's Greg, the update. I asked my doctor this week on Tuesday, if they win this game, could I go on the road for a championship game? And I got the green light. So I know you'll talk more and write more about Fred Warner coming back. But I got my own green dot in the back of my head here. So if they win this game, I'm planning on coming back for the championship. I would prefer L.A. Probably the Niners would rather have it be Chicago. But I told my doctor, L.A., 80 degrees, I'll lay by the beach, I'll be fine. If I have to go to 8 degrees in Chicago and -8, that may be a different story, but that's the plan.
Wow, that is awesome news. Greg, I love you. Thank you so much. And boy, enjoy the game on Saturday night.
Always do. Love you, man.
Love you. All right. Well, that's very encouraging news on Greg Papa. Feeling well. He's battled leukemia from July on, and he was back in the booth for that Week 18 game. That didn't turn out so well because he never got a chance to do his signature 49ers touchdown call, but very encouraging that he's in good enough physical health to be able to get back if the 49ers make it to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, that would be 2 major returns for the NFC Championship game from the 49ers. So the 49ers that are going to play on Saturday have got to do their job so they can get these guys back, both Greg Papa and Fred Warner. It's still remarkable that Fred Warner, we didn't really talk about him much yet, but remarkable that he is in the situation he's in, potentially being able to come back approximately 100 days after a devastating ankle injury.
Yeah, and now it's up to his teammates to rally to his cause and see if they can prolong this season as an extreme underdog, 7-point underdog. 49ers are the biggest underdog of the weekend in the NFL playoffs. It's going to be a busy weekend for Robert Saleh. We know that for sure. It's already been a busy week for him, not only game planning to face Seattle, but he had a couple of job interviews on Thursday night. And then he has a couple more reportedly scheduled for Sunday. So not a surprise at all, right? That Robert Saleh is on the radars of a lot of teams with these coaching openings.
Right. Not at all. I was always, I've always wondered if it has to be exactly the right situation for him because he's done it. He did it with the Jets and, may or may not have been the best situation in regards to an organization or not. But, how picky is he going to be? Obviously, there's a ton of demand. Does he want to stay as a defensive coordinator? I mean, I remember him saying, Kyle Shanahan saying, everybody saying that he does want to get back to being a head coach at some point. Is it next year? Does he wait a year? Is it the right situation? Because you see him on the sidelines. There is so much joy in his behavior and excitement in coaching the defense and having hands-on with his players. And there was not a whole lot of that when he was the head coach of the Jets. It's definitely a lifestyle choice to be a head coach because you have to be involved globally, is how Brandon Staley put it, as opposed to being hands-on. And I know Brandon Staley, when he was back with the 49ers for just that 1 year, he said, it's nice to be able to focus on just the defense and to be able to work with players and see the growth. What are your thoughts? Do you think Robert Saleh goes back immediately this year to a head coaching position?
I think if he's offered a job, he does. Yeah. I think that my guess is that if he has an interview, an initial interview with the team that he doesn't feel right about, that he would take his name out.
Mm-hmm.
But if it goes down the track or down the road of multiple interviews and he's offered a job, I think he takes it. And so, kind of to bring you up to date, so Robert, he had an interview Thursday evening. The Dolphins announced that they had interviewed Robert on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another, he was interviewed by the Arizona Cardinals also Thursday. So after practices on Thursday, Saleh interviewed for 2 jobs. And then there's reportedly a couple of interviews scheduled for Sunday with the Baltimore Ravens for 1. And the other one is with the Tennessee Titans. And he's also, on the radar of some other teams who reportedly have asked for permission to talk to him. So 4 interviews either in the books or scheduled, and then maybe more to come. And then this one kind of surprised me a little bit, but it kind of tells you about where the rest of the league views the 49ers coaching staff. Clay Kubiak, the 49ers offensive coordinator, he has been requested for an interview with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And man, talking about big shoes to fill there. The Pittsburgh Steelers just, they keep their head coaches around for like decades. They don't measure how long a Steelers coach has been around in years. They do it by decades. And so he is on the radar for that job. What's interesting, Jennifer, is when you look around the league, and I was compiling a list of all the candidates who have interviewed for all these, it was 9. John Harbaugh is going to the Giants, so it's
Right.
8. But so many 49er people, so many coaches with 49er ties, Mike McDaniel, Jeff Hafley is getting a lot of play. So, and Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. So a lot of people with 49ers ties are being sought for these positions.
It's a huge thing for Kyle Shanahan. Not only is it, obviously it looks great because he grows his people, and I've heard from multiple coaches of his that he is very open about his technique and teaching, and it's not just coaches, it's players too. I remember when Joe Staley first had his first meeting with Kyle Shanahan, and he said it changed the way he looked at football, and he was already a 10-year vet at that point. So the way he teaches coaches helps them be better coaches in the future. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with all head coaches, but it does take a toll on the 49ers. I mean, when there's been a mass hiring of his staff, it does take them a little while to get things going again. I remember when Mike McDaniel first took the job with Miami Dolphins, everything that Mike McDaniel did that Kyle Shanahan didn't have to ask for, he now had to ask for and figure out how to get that information in different ways. So it does require some retuning by Kyle Shanahan once the next season starts. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Mike LaFleur is another one who's interviewed with the Cardinals, former 49ers assistant, now with the Rams. For Clay Kubiak, who is the 49ers offensive coordinator, it is interesting because Kyle Shanahan said this a week or so ago. He basically put Clay Kubiak at the top of the list when it comes to people who have performed in that job for him, the quote unquote offensive coordinator. Now, by general standards, Kyle Shanahan is the head coach and the offensive coordinator. He's the one who calls the plays, but in the coordinator position, as it's structured on the 49ers staff, there is a lot of responsibility as far as game planning and putting plays together and just communicating with Shanahan. And so Shanahan was very effusive in his praise of the job that Clay Kubiak has done since he's been in that role.
Right. I mean, well, just last week, right? It was the double reverse Juwan Jennings pass to Christian McCaffrey that was suggested by Clay Kubiak to Kyle Shanahan to make that call. And it was pretty successful.
Yeah, I'd say so. Pretty successful. 49ers are marching on to Seattle because, in large part, because of that play. So, Jennifer, I know you'll be marching on to Seattle for the game Saturday night, and it should be a great atmosphere. The way that stadium is built with the overhang, it's very loud. I don't know that they pump in crowd noise, but I don't think they would have to on Saturday night because there will be a lot of Seahawks fans there generating noise. And I'm sure there will be a lot of 49er fans wearing red in that stadium as well.
I think so. Good thing for the forecast. No rain. It will be a little chilly, but not as cold as it was in Philadelphia. About low 40s or so. Highs are in the 50s by the time game kicks off. It'll be dark. It's a primetime game. It'll be chilly, but I don't think it'll be too crazy windy like we saw last week.
Yeah, 49ers offense needs to heat up if they're going to make it to the NFC Championship game Saturday night in Seattle. All right. For Jennifer, I'm Matt. Thanks so much for tuning in to 49ers Talk.